So imagine, it's a hot summer day and you're at a well filling a bucket full of water. After it's nice and full, you walk super carefully down that long gravel path back to your house, making sure not to spill any of it. But when you get there, you look down and realize that a portion of it is actually gone. It turns out there was an invisible leak at the bottom of the bucket. That's kind of what it feels like to look at your monthly processor statement and see just how many fees were withdrawn from your account. So today, I'm gonna give you 5 practical ways that you can lower your processing costs. Now we're gonna go in a specific order. We'll start with the quick wins and then move on to the insider secrets that'll change the way you look at your fees forever. And yes, payment processing fees are always gonna be there. But with these 5 things, I can show you how you can plug up that hole in your bucket so less water leaks out of it. The first tip is to optimize your payment setup for card-present transactions. Now, what are card-present transactions? Well, let me explain it this way. Payment processing rates aren't static. They change depending on a few different contexts. One of those things is in how your customer uses their card to pay. Card present simply means that the customer is there in front of you with the physical card, either tapping it or inserting it into your payment terminal. Whereas card not present is when you take the card number from the credit card and manually enter it in to some sort of interface, either a virtual terminal or a website, to process the transaction. These are also called keyed-in transactions. Now, because the second type of transaction there is much riskier, in other words, you could pretend to be somebody else, and it's hard to verify who's really paying, the processing rates for those types of transactions are actually higher. And this is true across the board, regardless of what payment processor you use. So for that reason, a quick win would be to take more card-present transactions. So if you have a physical checkout counter and you're still keying in credit cards for payment, considering making a one-time investment in some payment hardware so you can take physical cards instead. So let's dig into the math a little bit. So let's say you're making $25,000 a month in sales. If you just take 20% of that, which is $5,000, and run that through a physical terminal instead of keying in the card number, you'd be saving $45 that month. That's $540 across the entire year. The second tip is to audit your processor statements for any hidden or junk fees. Now, I think it's fair to say that most payment processors rely on the fog of finance. They make things so foggy and complex that you end up giving up and just accepting what's being charged to you without any further investigation. So my suggestion to you would be pull up your processor statement and take a look to see whether there's anything that's unnecessary on there. So here are a few examples. So firstly, there's the paper statement fee. This is something that they charge you for providing you with a paper copy of your statements, when in actuality, any institution in the 21st century should have their statements available on their platform in a digital document. You can simply just download these and print them off yourself. Then there's monthly minimum fees. This is something that they'll charge you if they deem that you haven't paid them enough fees in that month just to top you up so they can meet their own margins. Now, there's countless other examples of different names of random fees that you might find on your statement. And so here's the takeaway. Call up your processor's support team and ask them to walk you through any fee that you don't quite understand. If they don't give you a satisfactory answer for why that fee exists, well then that's a red flag. As I was saying before, statements can be super confusing. That's why things can lurk on there for months without you even knowing. To help clear this fog, we offer free statement comparisons. You can upload a PDF of your statement onto our website, and someone from our team will look at it and tell you how much you'd save if you switch to Helcim. We offer this service to give you a more transparent look at what your current processors are charging you. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. Tip number 3 is to steer your customers toward ACH payments or debit payments. So earlier we talked about how processing rates can differ depending on if the card is there with you or if it's being entered on a website. Well, there's also a more significant difference in processing rates between using credit cards and using 2 other forms of payment, debit cards and ACH payments. Now in Canada, ACH payments are also known as EFTs, electronic funds transfers. In any case, what we're talking about is bank-to-bank transfers. Now, bank transfers and debit transactions have one thing in common, and it's that they're being paid for by money that already exists in an account somewhere. Whereas with credit cards, the payment is done with an amount that's loaned to the customer from a bank. Because of this, ACH and debit transactions are lower risk for the banks and the payment processors, and so they carry lower fees. So what if you took $7,500 of your sales and move them over from credit card transactions to either ACH or debit. Considering the industry standard flat rate for credit card payments is 2.9%, we can estimate that using ACH or debit would cost around 1% on average. This is a blended rate that takes into account different ACH and debit rates across the industry. In this example, you would save $140 a month in processing fees. That amounts to $1,700 a year. Now, how do we actually influence our customers to use ACH or debit? Well, we can incentivize the behavior. For starters, even letting customers know that ACH is an option might cause them to consider using it. For recurring bills on subscriptions or large wholesale purchases, you could even make ACH the default payment. That way your customers will be presented with it right off the bat and then have to opt out rather than opt in. In terms of debit cards, you could post a sign on your register that says something like, "Debit helps us keep our prices low." Just having something like this displayed could create more empathy from your customers about processing costs for your business, and then think twice about using their credit card every single time they pay you. The fourth tip is to implement surcharging. So let's say you're in a situation where the majority of your customers are still using credit cards to pay you. Well, in this case, you could try something called surcharging instead. This is where you add a fixed percentage fee to your customers' bills every time they want to use a credit card. Not only does this create a further incentive for them to use an alternate payment method, but if they still want to use their credit card, that charge that they're paying ends up covering your processing costs. Back to the numbers for a second. If you process $17,000 in credit card sales and you implemented a 3% surcharge in that month, you would recover back $500 in fees. This amounts to over $6,000 saved in that year. Now, surcharging is a complex and nuanced topic. It might not be legal wherever you do business. And even if it is, you might feel a bit of guilt about implementing it. It helps to think about it as a choice rather than a penalty for your customers. Because at the end of the day, other payment methods like ACH, debit, or cash can't be surcharged. So if a customer doesn't want to pay the extra fee, they can use those payment methods instead. Now, the fifth and final tip is to seek out interchange plus pricing. This is also known as cost plus pricing in the payments industry. Now, we really saved the best for last because this is about the cost structure of your payment processor. So a lot of the big, more well-known processors out there use a flat rate model. What this means is that they charge a simple fixed percentage rate for each transaction that you take with them. Now, while this might be simple, it actually punishes you as your business grows. Because here's the secret. Not all credit cards cost that payment processor the same amount to process. A standard MasterCard is way cheaper for that processor to process than a premium corporate rewards card. So if the majority of your customers use standard MasterCards and they're not paying as much for it, why should you? That's the key to interchange plus pricing. For a flat rate provider, you're forced to pay the exact same rate for whatever credit card you're processing. With Interchange Plus, you pay whatever the wholesale cost is, plus a small markup that goes to the processor. The other cool thing about Interchange Plus is that the higher your processing volumes get, the better of a deal you get for your processing rates. Because you're paying the wholesale cost plus a markup, a lot of Interchange Plus processors actually adjust that markup down as you process more with them. This means you're saving even more as your business grows. So let's look at this example with a $25,000 monthly processing volume. Well, if you were to see a mix of standard credit cards, with a flat rate, you could expect to pay something like $875. With Interchange Plus, you'd be paying $590 instead. That's a monthly savings of $285. So if you're scaling business in this ballpark, you could expect to save $2,000 to $5,000 a year if you switch to Interchange Plus. In conclusion, I hope that what you learned today is that you don't have to let your hard-earned revenue leak out in the form of processing fees. Whether it's by taking more card-present transactions or switching your business over to a processor that uses Interchange Plus, the power is in your hands. Now, as a next step, to see exactly how big that leak in your bucket is, check out our statement comparison tool. Now, I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it here again. This is a free tool you can use where you can enter numbers from your real processor statement and find out how much you'd save if you switch to Helcim. There's also another option where you can upload a PDF of your statement and someone on our team will analyze it for you. In either case, it's a great way to learn more about how much you're paying on your statements. If you're interested, click the link below.